Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings. So welcome, Freddie, to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. Do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to who you are and how you got involved in the digital inclusion joining the DOTS initiative?
Okay, Ryan, thanks for having me. Freddie Quek, I'm Chief Technology Officer at Times Higher Education. So in my day job, I'm a sort of a tech leader, and for many years I started in publishing. And the last 6 years, I have had the opportunity to be in a number of different industries, from travel, loyalty, insurance, fintech, automotive, and now to higher education. So that's my background as an IT leader for many years. And how I get involved in this joining the dots. So earlier this year, in January 2021, it started with a conversation with one of the IT leaders groups. And very quickly, it grew to 9 of those communities that I'm part of, speaking to at least leaders one-to-one, right? So those 9 communities, if I may give them a shout out, includes the UK IT leaders, Horizon CIO Network, Seed, which is a charity, IT leaders charity, CIO Water Cooler, Hot Topics, Computing, Tech Monitor, charity IT leaders, and last but not least, the BCS. So these 9 tech communities represent 90,000 tech professionals, right? And joining the dots is just a sort of a connected federation of communities and organizations who share the same vision and passion to address digital inclusion for all in the UK. Yeah, and it started last year in October when I was approached by Seed, one of the charities, and they said, Freddie, could you help us to raise the profile, raise some money for 3 schools in the Northeast, which is one of the most deprived part of the UK? And I said, of course. And everybody that I reach out to, from social media to one-to-one chats, everybody says the same thing. Yeah, of course. But then when we started the campaign, we didn't really raise enough money. There is attention, but there's not enough to go far enough to, and I'm not talking about big number. 150 laptops is not a lot, right? 150 devices. And this is where we started asking the question, but why? What is it that is difficult to solve this problem? And the more I talked with, one obvious response came back was, how do we help? Where do we start and how do we help? And this is why, from speaking with one person, one community, to across my own community, which is 9 of them, suddenly you realize that everybody sees the same issue, sees the same challenge, but nobody quite know how to take the second step. The first step is the easiest part, which, by the way, again, from this 6-week study, we realized that everybody starts from the most obvious place. We think right, we donate some money, and we think the problem can be solved. But actually, it's much harder than that because, raising money is not easy. And also trying to not solve this problem in a more holistic and systematic way doesn't go far enough either. It's like, when you see somebody on the street and you throw them a few coins, it doesn't really help them, does it? Right? So I think as IT leaders, we've been brought up to be sort of strategic while thinking, breaking problems down into small chunks to solve. This is why we all rally together and say, surely there must be a better way of looking at this problem and also a better way of solving this problem.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, your analogy of the beggar on the street is so true. I'm in Joburg at the moment, and we've got a beggar that's nearby us that we see every day. We give him something every day, but we're not solving his problem. And for every one that I see of him, there's hundreds, thousands. Yeah. And they all want, some of them don't want to work, but some of them do want to work, but there's not enough work to give them, or they haven't got the skills. And I think this is kind of similar. How do you get someone into, going back to the digital world, how do you skill them up? And I think we've got to thank COVID to an extent. It has pushed people, their level up of knowledge of, what was possible 10 years ago. Now everyone's comfortable that they can do a Teams or a Zoom call. I say everyone, but the good majority, whereas used to be a finite amount of people that could do that, and usually inside a big corporate. So yeah, I think this is very admirable, and I'm hoping that it works.
Yeah, thank you. And this is not just me alone, right? I think every one of us, as I say, in the IT leaders communities, each one of us, either we are a parent or a leader, we realize that there must be a better way of doing this. And I think what is clear is this, no single person or even organization, let's say we talk about the government, they can't do it on their own. Neither can that single person on the street to solve it on their own. But the point of joining the dots is that, but together, if we all do our bit, we can get there. And together, if we're able to just understand who is doing what, then we stand a better chance of solving the problem by not exactly duplicating the effort, but being a bit more focused on what we can do. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share with you the findings from the 6 weeks, because from the most obvious place, which is to just help with donating equipment and money, right, which is where everybody starts from, we found that there are at least 5 other areas that we need to pay attention to. So it's not painting a broader picture, right? So, the second action area is around technical support. So if you get the device in the hand of a child or of a teacher, of a support staff, if they are not equipped with the right support, how can they use the device, right? So that's area number 2. And by the way, that is currently an area of weakness because we've not seen enough initiatives out there. The equipment donation is by far the most popular. The BBC has got it, the Daily Mail has got it. They raised 10.6 million in 3 weeks by celebrities. So and we counted more than 70 of those initiatives. But tech support, it becomes very complicated, right? Because if you look at the myriad of devices out there, from laptops to desktops to tablets, and the different operating systems and the different manufacturers, right? Even us as IT leaders in our organizations, we have a very simple policy. You don't reuse, you just replace, right? You only standardize on certain things. But look at how we're solving the problem. We're donating all this that we don't need, which is therefore multiple types, and then we expect schools and children to handle them. How is that not a problem? Now you see the beginning of a much bigger problem there, right? And that's second area. If you look at action area number 3, is around digital skills and online education, right? So the whole point of getting a device is that you need to be able to get an online education for children. It started with disadvantaged school children. And by the way, according to Ofcom, the gap is up to 1.8 million, right? Just so you know, right? And according to...
Sorry, when you say 1.8 million, what do you mean?
1.8 million children that has got no access to devices for school, right? And if you look at what the Department of Education, the government is doing, they're providing 1.3 million, right? So if you don't see those two numbers, you would think that, wow, it's a big number, it's solved. But if you use those two as the way to analyze the gap, we're talking about at least between 400,000 to 500,000 that's missing, right? Then if you look at some of the big initiatives out there, like the Daily Mail program initiative, where they raised 10.6 million in 3 weeks, do you know how many equipment does that money get you? I've calculated based on the Department of Education's calculation. Maybe it will get you between 30 to 50,000 devices. So if you put everything into context, it's solving what, 10% at best of the problem, right? And on top of that, you currently have close to 1 million children that is using a mobile device for school, and I mean their mobile phone, right? So if you add all these things up, it's a very complicated, complex situation, right? So anyway, that's the third area about digital skills, just being able to give them the right skills to be able to use Zoom and all those things, And then fourth is around tech career opportunities. So this is including apprenticeship, mentoring, work placements, career talks, and by far, this is one area where many IT leaders and professionals have told me is one area that they can help, they would like to help. They would like to be able to offer 1 day a week or a few days a month or how many hours a year. But how do we harness all that goodwill in a way that can give it to the people that needs them, right? Many people are doing apprenticeship program. Many people are doing mentoring program. Many people are doing these sort of career talks. Verizon is one of them. They have a really flexible CSR program, and we're working with them right now. They have actually done career talks for one particular community in the UK, in London, right? And then the question is this: if they have done it already, why can't we then scale it up and expose it to everybody else who needs it, right? So you can see that on both sides, both the individual as well as the corporate initiatives, there's lots of things out there that we don't really know enough about. How do we find a way to bring them together and make people aware? This is why we call it joining the dots, right? So to finish off, action area number 5 is communications, right? Communications, as you know, is about socializing and mobilizing. So part 1 is we want to socialize what we know today so that we don't start from scratch, such as let's just donate equipment. right? We want to start from the position, now that we know there are 6 areas, what can we do to help in one or many of those 6 areas, right? And then the second part is mobilize. How do we get people who are interested to help in the most effective way? Because if we are not careful, guess what? We will all end up doing the same thing again, which is let's just start another campaign to build a website to have some donation thing. And this, I see that happening. So we already have more than 70. Should we continue to add on to it, or should we just say let's leave it to those who are doing it very well and focus our attention somewhere else?
Yeah, because that's where I got involved. Or where I mean, this started for me was there was some level of sorting out or harmonizing all these initiatives into one umbrella program,
Yep.
maybe, or portfolio of projects. Because, you know, as a person who's got some time available, not necessarily some resources available, happily to get involved in mentoring or happy to help with some sort of design, you know, use my skills or whatever. But it was always difficult to pick the one to join or get involved.
And if you are part of a community that you and I are part of, it's very hard for that community to commit to one, right? Because how do they know that's the right thing? Because nobody has done enough to say this is the right thing, which is why, you know, I didn't start thinking that this is where we get to, but because of the fact that when I talk to, you know, people like yourself and others, we realize that actually, if we find a way to join them up better, maybe we can be more effective. And this is how it's happening. So for example, with Action Area 1, equipment provisioning, this week itself, we will be sort of signposting. So one of the outputs we want to do is to just signpost first to our own communities about how we as individual IT leaders, or as the community that we're part of, or as the organization we work for, what can we do now based on this information to do something about it, right? So this week, we would like to get out the message that actually by working with the Princess Trust, the business in the community, they have a national program called National Business Response Network, which is about mobilizing businesses to help locally, how to, you know, because that's how you can scale, right? So they already have a tech appeal platform. Why do we need to build another one, right? So this is where we're basically socializing the message saying, if you're an IT leader and today you're thinking of doing something and you have not started, guess what? This might be a good place for you to start, because we are all joining forces to create a rolling program of collecting donations that we can then mobilize and use it to the various specific initiatives about there. So as I mentioned, one of the charities called SEED, which is Society for Entrepreneurial Education and Development, they actually have a program for 3 schools in the Northeast, right? And the idea here is that being IT leaders, we want to have a more end-to-end solution. Let it be a POC that we test on, not just about providing the equipment, but providing support, providing skills. So it's joining up with STEM learning to give them a bit of skills. Also with cyber safety, cyber security. So make it more holistic. And if we can get it to work for 3 schools, then we scale up to that cluster, which is the Northeast cluster. And then maybe that becomes a model that we can scale out to other parts of the UK.
Yeah, because I think that's, I mean, when I was going to ask you about how do you measure success, you mentioned those numbers, the 1.8 million, the 1.3 million, but I guess there's a level of coverage as well. You know, does this work in England? Does it work in Scotland, Ireland, etc.?
So on that front, you know, when I started this and I spent 6 weeks, I only probably cover a micro part of the landscape, right? And it's not possible for me to keep going. I have a day job. But what is really good is that because of, again, connecting you know, with other organizations, so there's now the emergence of a new organization called Digital Poverty Alliance. And this is being put together as a national approach to bringing all the initiatives together, which I think is amazing, because what is really lacking right now is somebody pulling it all together and doing the signposting at the sort of national level than what we are doing right now, which is very, very sort of narrow and tiny, right? And of course, you know, you may ask, what is this? Is this yet another organization is trying to bring it all under, you know, one umbrella? You know, and this is what you'll find, right? It's either people say there's nothing out there, or people will say that how come, you know, yet another one is trying to do something. But of course, you got to look at the facts, right? What is good about this is that this is being driven by the IET, right? Institution for Engineering and Technology, and together with also, I believe, the BCS, with the Learning Foundation, which is already driving the Digital Access for All program, which is to provide a device to all child by 2030, right? That is something where we are joining the dots with them, right? So that together, we are beginning to join both small things and big things. And that is the big thing that's also joining up with government, with the grassroots, with corporates. This is how we're trying to bring it all together. And the keyword here is together, right? Nobody's doing it on their own.
Yeah, I think it's very important. It's about it's proper tribal work, really. It's looking after all the people in the village. So with the people that are involved, I mean, what if someone wanted to get in contact with you now? How would they get involved? I know, kind of jumping a bit to the end, but also, let's answer that question now in case someone wants to know.
Yeah, very simple. So I'm interested in answering two questions. Yeah, if you're already doing something, please get in touch and share what you know, because part of what I'm doing is to just share out what I've covered so far. And again, as I saw mentioned about the DPA, so they are working with another organization called PTI, and currently they have undertaken a sort of a program of work to create a national landscape of digital poverty in the UK. So that would help us to understand the landscape, that will help us to understand the gaps, and that will also help us to see how we can direct effort towards addressing different needs in different places. Today, we don't really have that. So I really welcome that initiative, and I'm glad that the work that we've been together as part of the 9 communities can contribute towards that effort, right? So get in touch with me to tell me what you're doing, or also get in touch with me if you're interested to help in one of those 6 areas. And again, to that effect, again, one of the communities is building a volunteer app that will help us to sort of register interest, like yourself, Ryan. If you say you can offer a few hours a week or a month, how can we capture that on one hand? And also on the other hand, people who say they can either offer help or want help in those 6 areas, that will help us to create the beginning of something that allows us to bring the two hubs together.
No, I think that's great. I think that's what everyone needs nowadays. Not that apps are the only solution, but the easiest way to get in touch and find out works out there, almost like a task rabbit. Type solution. Out of interest, you mentioned this is UK centric, but I mean, are there other organizations globally that are doing this, or communities that are worth learning from potentially, or sharing these learnings with? I'm thinking US or Europe.
Yeah, so very interesting is that because of my sort of a network, I do have friends and ex-colleagues in the US and in Europe, and they've got in touch, and there are definitely similar initiatives in the US and even in Europe. We've also got a few sort of collaborators here. You can see joining the dots, although currently is about the UK. Remember, the part of the reason is because we got to break the problem into something that you can solve, right? So we are all in the UK. Why are we not solving our own problem? UK is the world's 5th largest economy. The fact that we have digital poverty, kids with no equipment. We're more than 1 year into COVID, and yet now we know that there's still a lot of children with no device. As IT leaders, how can we not solve that problem? And by the way, I do believe it's a solvable problem, right? Yeah, if you break it up, those numbers are not horrendous.
Do you think this is going to get to the point that you're going to change the education system?
Sorry, what do you mean by changing the education system?
So the current education systems are based on, the 1800s. Basically setting you up to work in a factory. But being digital to an extent means you can be, any place, anytime, any device. So more outcomes based as opposed to time served to an extent. And I'm just wondering if you were to, I mean, I think schools are important purely from a social aspect. I think it's good, kids need to learn social skills by interacting with each other. But if you were to reduce schools in size and reduce their costs, you could increase the equipment that you could provide, because the funding that goes to maintaining a school would actually go to funding the tools the kids need to be educated. I'm just wondering if, it's kind of a top of my head thought.
Yeah, I think, again, this is a huge topic in terms of, how education can be and should be different. But I think what is clear, right, is that in this digital world, this is why this is all about digital inclusion, right? Nobody should be excluded. So although we started with school children and disadvantaged school children, but if you look at the other spectrum, what about the pensioners? What about the ones that are adults who've got no skills? And right now, because everything is digitalized, unless you're able to have digital means, that means that those people are excluded. So we've now end up with another situation whereby people are being excluded without them knowing, because they were not brought along this journey. And this is why, if I may take this opportunity for example of how Joining the Dots is making sure that people are aware of some of the information out there, so that you don't duplicate or replicate, but you can help to make it happen sooner. So for example, one of the issues with equipment provisioning is that even when you get the device to the child or to the intended recipient, the next problem is that, do they have the means to have a data plan? Do they have the means to have connectivity? That is yet another problem. So how do we solve that in a more holistic way, right? Because suddenly you're opening a can of worms from trying to solve one problem, which is, let me just donate a few pounds, buy a device, to, now I got to solve connectivity, I got to solve training, I got to solve skills. Where does it start and where does it end? It's very complex. So this is why we got to break it down. And why I brought this up is because the Good Things Foundation, together with Nominet, they have just in last 2 weeks make a big announcement that they will help to solve data poverty, right? So they have a data poverty initiative whereby they want to find a way where people who needs data will have data through a number of different means, either from donation or from gifting, or like all you and I, if we have unused data each month, they can be rolled into a bank, a data bank that can be redistributed. So these are all great ideas, and that is an example whereby they have a target to address ending data poverty by 2024. Right?
That's
I
actually,
welcome that. That
yeah,
sounds
that's a great
great.
idea.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea, and this is why I want people to know, if you're aware of this and you want to solve a problem, don't solve that problem. Solve other problem. But if you think you can help them, and this is an appeal to all the big telecoms company, if you want to help with this, work with the Good Things Foundation and Nominate and help them solve that problem faster than 2024.
Yeah, it's not far away.
Yeah, it's too far away, right? But I think if we are smart about it, we can make it sooner.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Heather, you've been very quiet. Any thoughts, or is this all just a lot of information?
No, it's very interesting. I'm just thinking it might make more sense if I just hang out of this episode, since you're both involved in this effort and I'm in the US. So I'll just serve the role of producer for this one and let you know if anything comes up. But I am interested. I don't know if this is an angle that would be that interesting to dig into a little bit, but really the support angle, because that seems like, how do you solve that aspect of the problem with all these disparate kinds of devices and devices, from anywhere? Like how do you even start to approach the aspect of IT support for an initiative like that?
Yeah, and this is why I think, again, like in solving all problems, you got to look at both the short term and the long term, right? The tactical versus the strategic, right? So the message for the tactical solution is that if today you're already doing something, please continue to do so, right? Because helping every single person still matters. You can't say, oh, because it doesn't go far enough. Look, it's better to have duplicate effort than no effort, right? So that's the tactical part, and we got to do what we can. Again, over Easter, I got a call from one of the communities saying, Freddie, look, we have this person who works in a charity. Their laptop is broken, and because of that, it leads to other types of problems. And what can we do to help this person? And I wish, with our initiative, we could help solve those kind of problems, almost instantaneously. But unfortunately, that is not the reality, right? So, but the reality was that a few people got together and bought this person a laptop. That is how we solve problems, one at a time. So that's the tactical bit that we should continue to do in whatever capacity that we can. But the strategic one has to be, now that we are aware, hopefully, of the sort of the wider and more complex issues, is to try and find a way to make sure that we start engaging with each other, try and join the dots. Because again, part of this digital world is that, as you can see, we call out, right? Communications is key here, right? There are certain things we should know. So let's make find a way to make sure that happens. And that's why, Ryan, thank you for this opportunity, because this is our way of getting the message out to at least the UK IT leaders communities as a starting place. And if it gets to other communities, that's great, right? But we would like to make sure that all these things, whatever problems that we're solving here, is not unique to any individual sort of population or individual, right? Because that is the great thing about technology, right? It can be solved for a lot of people if we know how to do that properly.
So you've been doing this now for a couple of months. I mean, what are the success stories you can talk about, if there are any? One comes to mind, but
well, I mean, so many. Just for example, being able to share that information with you about Digital Poverty Alliance, about the Data Poverty Program, about the 9 communities coming together, about this sort of equipment provisioning that we can get all the IT leaders to start doing something about. I mean, there's so many, which is why I'm so grateful for the communities that I'm part of. I've been blown away by what our communities are doing, because, as I said many times, this is not about what I'm doing, this is about what we are trying to do. And what I'm doing here is my tiny little bit. I have a background in research. I'm a qualified researcher, so that gives me some of the tools, and also the courage, and also the approach of talking to people to get that information, right? And that's only part one. But the part two has to be about how do we then mobilize all these leaders out there who say they want to do something.
Yeah, I think we're always all willing. We just need an easy way to do it.
Yeah, just like paying taxes. Yeah, if you make it easier, then people will do it. Otherwise, it's not something you can avoid, but you still got to do it, right?
Yeah. Now you mentioned an app. Is that coming this year? Do you think, or is that still down the road?
Yes. So again, one of the sort of community members. This is the Seed charity. They are working on an app right now. So I'm hoping that it might be available in the next 4 weeks or so, because then that would be great, right?
Yep.
Right.
That'd be fantastic.
The speed is key here, right? We need to make sure that whatever we do will start to become further reaching than what it is today, and also faster than what is happening today, right? Because as I say, we are now 1 year into COVID. There's still children that is pretty much been deprived of education, right? And if you have seen the deck that I've shared before, right, you'll find that the impact on not the individual, it is also the impact on society. There was one research that shows that it will impact society by 65 years. I mean, those are horrendous numbers.
Well, that is one of the biggest worries about COVID is the education impact on the kids, not attending school, but as you said, it's these little things. Not being able to use a device means when they start the workforce or looking for jobs, they're already so far behind. That's why it's great to start with the kids. But as you also said, it's all levels, all ages that have been excluded, and bringing them in. I mean, I met a guy yesterday. He wasn't more than 40. He says he's never used a smartphone. He only uses one of those old Nokia phones, and he's nervous to try the new phones. I mean, we probably all laugh at him because we use those sort of phones every day. But he needed someone to sit with him. It's obviously it's a confidence problem and a capability problem, but also, someone has to take the time to mentor him and coach him to be okay with exploring these new things. So that's
the key, right? So now, how do we find a way to join up the two halves? Because on one hand, now we know that there are many IT leaders and professionals who are willing to offer help like this, because we are more than capable of doing that, and we want to. And on the other hand, how do we reach out to those individuals out there today that needs help? What is that mechanism for doing that?
I think there's probably many answers to the question, which is key to what you're doing. So you're putting out a post on LinkedIn every so often. Is that something good for people to follow as well?
Yes. So thank you. So we need to find a way to play out the information gathering, right? And one of the ways is by creating a page on LinkedIn. It's called linkedin.com/company/digital inclusion. So hopefully it's quite easy to get to. And if you get there and you just follow us, then that is how you will get the weekly posting. That is our plan. We want to post at least weekly to share information of what we know today, right? And very soon we would like to encourage all the communities to be part of the Digital Poverty Alliance, because then we are doing it under one sort of big umbrella that allows us to share more information and work better together. Yeah.
Great. Anything else you want to share with us? I mean, you shared quite a lot with us at the moment, so I'm feeling like it's all up there.
So one thing, if I may say right now, is this. Yeah, if you are doing something already, please don't think that because somebody else is already doing it that you stop. Just keep doing. So and well done, and thank you, because there's still so much to be done. So please do so. And if you're not doing something already, then please get in touch, because then we can at least register your interest, share with you the information that we have, and hopefully that will help you to decide better for yourself about what you might want to do next.
Well, maybe a suggestion for those that are doing something and you're not aware of it, maybe they need to send that to you as a good story, because it's a best practice to an extent that might be worth sharing, or it is worth sharing.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Anything that we can do to, and remember, this is not just down to me. So I would like to make sure that, as IT leaders, please contribute in any ways you can. Get in touch. Every little thing actually matters.
Yeah. No, totally agreed.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. Super. So they can get you on LinkedIn. We'll put those links into the show notes. There's the company page for Join the Dots. Is there an email address or a Twitter account or something like that to follow? Or
yeah, so people can get in touch with me. My work email address is, and thanks to my organization for supporting me too, right? Times Higher Education. So my email address is freddie@timeshighereducation.com.
Brilliant. Super. Great stuff. Well, I think we ended there. That's fantastic, and let's hope that in a year's time maybe we do a recap and see how those numbers have changed.
Yes, that would be great if we can show that there's been progress made in this area, right?
Super.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.